But how will all of these overnight cues impact our own Indian markets? We now have our research team joining in with how the trade setup looks like and the stocks that are likely to be in the news. First up, let me start off with how the trade setup looks like. Now, yesterday's trading session marked a phenomenal recovery from the day's lowest point. The market recovered almost 300 points and closed in the green. And the trigger for that was renewed hopes of diplomatic dialogue between the US and Russia and reports of Putin's visit to India. Apart from that, when you look at the mid-cap as well as the small-cap end of the market, that too saw a very good recovery. In fact, they outperformed what the benchmark indices did in yesterday's trading session. Sectoral indices, most of them ended in the green, and the gains were led by Nifty Media, IT, Pharma. On the other hand, Nifty Energy as well as Realty were the only two indices which were in the red. Now, the handover that came in from the US markets, it's a little mixed. We did see the Dow Jones as well as the S&P 500 close in the red, but on the flip side, the Nasdaq did quite well, up almost 0.4%. As far as today's trading session is concerned, we'll be watching out for a whole host of stocks reacting to their numbers that came in post-market hours yesterday. Take a look at Cummins India, HPCL, BSE as well as Godrej Consumer. Today, we'll be watching out for numbers from SBI, Tata Motors, Siemens, Hindustan Aeronautics as well as Grasim. Other than that, a cabinet meeting is scheduled at 1 p.m. PM Modi will be discussing the impact of tariffs with ministers. Watch out for Nestle as well because the stock goes X. It's the X date for their bonus issue, which is in the ratio of 1:1. The GIFT Nifty will also come up for you on the screen. For now, it's a mild start in the negative for the Indian market. So let's see where the session goes. But over to Upasna now, who will list out all the stocks to watch out for in trade today. Good morning, Upasna.
Good morning. First up, let me start with LIC. It's a beat to our poll. The new business premium up 5% and VNB margins also saw an uptick of nearly about 146 basis points at 15.3%. Next up is Titan. Revenue and margin is a beat versus poll. The revenue is up about 25%. Margin stood at 11.1% versus 9.4% on a YoY basis. Next up is Godrej Consumer. Revenue is in line while PAT and margin is a miss as compared to our poll. Revenue is up 10%. Margin stood at 19% versus 21.7%. Next up is Biocon. It's a slight miss in terms of numbers. Revenue growth saw an uptick of nearly about 14.8% versus estimates of 19% growth, and margin stood at 19% versus 11.9% on a year-on-year basis. Metropolis Healthcare is the next one on our radar. Strong revenue growth, but margins lower due to high employee cost. Revenue saw an uptick of 23%. Margin stood at 23.2% versus 25.2%. Schneider Electric is the next one. Net profit is down about 15%. Revenue is up just about 5% on year-on-year basis. Next up is Cummins India. It's a beat across the board. Revenue saw a growth of nearly about 26% and PAT has also seen an uptick of 40% on year-on-year basis. Crompton Consumer is the next one. It's overall a weak quarter. It has missed the street estimates and revenue is down by 7% on year-on-year basis. AU Small Finance Bank also in focus as the bank receives in principle approval from RBI to become a universal bank. And lastly, according to sources on Bharti Airtel, promoter entity that is Indian Continent Investment is likely to sell 0.8% equity of the company via block deal. So overall, it's quite an exhaustive list today, Vamakshi.
Well, thank you so much for that, Upasna. An exhaustive list indeed. But finally, we now have Sudarshan joining in with cues from the F&O space. Sudarshan, good morning. What are you watching out for?
Good morning, Mamakshi. So yesterday we saw big intraday recovery and that helped both Nifty and Nifty Bank closing above the major key levels. But for today, GIFT Nifty is indicating again start with minor cuts. Now, if you look at the flows in the cash market, you will see that FIs have sold nearly 5,000 crore and DIs have bought almost rupees 11,000 crore. But do factor in, yesterday we saw two major block deals of Kotak Mahindra Bank where FII was a big seller and that selling amount was of rupees almost 2,100 crore. And in DIs, if you have seen this buy figure of almost 11,000 crore, that includes also Kotak and Zomato block deals of almost rupees 8,500 crore. So do factor in that. But now we did see intraday recoveries, but if you look at the in the index futures, FIs continue to sell. Yesterday also they have sold more than rupees 1,100 crore. Again, they continue to add positions in the short side. Yesterday they have added more than 6,800 contracts on the short side, and now FI's long exposure remains around 90%, and on the short side, it's 91%. So if there is any positive news, there is a chance that we might see a big recovery again. Now, what's happening on the option front? Again, action happening between 24,500 to 24,800, and that's the reason support remains around 24,470 and resistance remains around 24,800. Now, what about the stocks? One stock that remains in the band, that is PNB Housing. One stock that was expected to go in the band was RBL Bank, but it did not go. Apart from this, keep an eye on two more stocks, that is Lupin. Yesterday, we saw short covering because company had reported Q1 earnings. Earnings were in line and also commentary was positive. And apart from that, NCC has been in focus after the commentary because company has managed to retain the guidance that it had given for FY26.
Well, thank you so much for that, Sudarshan. The Bulls would be hoping, fingers crossed, toes crossed, everything crossed, to end the week with the bank. But